Real Country 1430 AM and 107.3 FM WRDN. This is the WRDN Morning Farm Report. I'm Brian Winnikins. Joining us this morning, Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin, as we talk about some agriculture issues going on in D.C. Thank you to our newsmaker sponsors, including the Wisconsin Soybean Marketing Board, Wisconsin Corn Growers Association, Wisconsin Farmers Union, Synergy Co-op, Osteoplastics, Compeer Financial, Animal Wellness Center of Buffalo Valley, Edibus Silo, and Alcivia Co-op. Senator Baldwin, thanks for joining us today. Well, just before we started, your press office released you're kind of concerned about staffing issues with the railroads and how that could adversely affect farmers. And I thought I'd start off with that because there's rumors that there could be a strike for rail workers in Canada with the Canadian National, Canadian Pacific, Kansas City railroads that could affect us. So tell us about your concerns on those staffing levels.
Absolutely. Well, we know that rail service is how some of our producers get their products to market, and any cessation, especially when you're talking about perishable products, is a critical issue. We were on the verge of a strike just a couple of years ago here in the U.S. that was averted with last minute negotiations. But I have several layers of concerns with staffing issues. The freight rails tend to want to have fewer staff, which raises safety issues. I think you can't have a mile-long train without having adequate personnel for a matter of safety. But when we hear about the prospect of strikes in Canada, the disruptions that could then impact in the United States are very significant. And some of the freight rail, as you know, are Canadian owned.
Talking with Senator Tammy Baldwin this morning. Meanwhile, big topic for dairy farmers and concern for dairy farmers has been the avian influenza outbreak that's in dairy cattle. Now, thankfully, the milk supply is safe. We always got to kind of and tell people that pasteurized milk is totally safe. So is ground beef, it looks like, as well. But what are some of the things that you're hoping to see USDA do to address this issue?
Well, certainly, Wisconsin's dairy industry supports thousands of good-paying jobs, and it drives our rural economies. And so it's critical that we get the response to this avian virus right. And so I have been calling on all the agencies involved to communicate and coordinate. And I think where you started is a really important point. Pasteurization neutralizes the virus. So if you're consuming a pasteurized product, you're fine. But we still want to make sure that that the USDA is working with our farmers to provide resources for managing this outbreak. And one of the complexities of this is there's so many federal agencies involved. There's only been one identified case of the avian flu skipping from cow to human that's been reported so far. But still, because of that risk, the Centers for Disease Control are involved. The FDA is involved. It's like alphabet soup here: USDA, ASPR. Earlier this week, I convened a virtual roundtable of Wisconsin stakeholders and representatives from the USDA, FDA, CDC, and ASPR to have a dialogue. And if there's one takeaway from our conversation, it is that we must remain vigilant and proactive by prioritizing research, testing, and preparedness efforts ahead of potential outbreaks.
Talking with U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin this morning. And Senator Baldwin, now when I was out in D.C. here a few weeks back, of course, I had to do all that alphabet soup too. Unbelievable. Anyway, Farm Bill, and the House came out with a framework, but so has Senator Stabenow from the Senate Ag Committee come out with a framework for the Farm Bill. Have you had a chance to look at it? What do you like? What don't you like?
Yeah, so we know that in anticipation of a new farm bill, that we have to recognize that our farmers are really facing headwinds from volatile prices and rising costs to, extreme weather events. That is something that is reality these days. And so we need a farm bill, first of all, for certainty and reliability. We need a 5-year bill so that we're not leaping from extension to extension. And we have to have robust funding for programs that farmers rely on. I'm proud to champion several initiatives that I feel really strongly about, and to see those in the framework set out by Chair Stabenow was really gratifying. And just to list a couple of them, in the last Farm Bill, I authored the Dairy Business Innovation Initiative, and this past year got to tour a number of the folks who have competed and won the innovation grants. And it's been amazing to see their innovation and how they're adding value or improving efficiency. I also author an act called the Healthy H2O Act, which permits far greater testing of private wells for PFAS and lead and nitrates. And also, if that testing it proves that there are contaminants, the second phase of the grant is to provide filtration systems for folks who have drinking water that is contaminated. And lastly, I am expanding the Farm and Ranch Stress Assistance Network. This is an initiative that I've championed. It's a bipartisan initiative that I've championed with Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa, recognizing that given the unique challenges that farmers face, like long hours and intensive labor and volatile weather and fluctuating prices that they're getting for their products, that causes a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. Oftentimes there's isolation, and so we need to do more to connect farmers with the mental health resources that they need.
Talking with Senator Tammy Baldwin. Finally, Senator Baldwin, know you have to go, but going to ask one final question. You're on the Senate Commerce Committee. Now, again, when I was out in DC, the House Energy and Commerce Committee had a meeting on the AM for Every Vehicle Radio Act, and it looks like they're getting ready to mark up that bill. Also, when I was in DC, we found out that you reached the 60 senator threshold of co-sponsors. You're one of the original co-sponsors as well,
Yes.
with Senator Markey and Senator Cruz. Okay, so where are we at on the Senate Commerce Committee? Is there something coming up on that? Or are you going to wait for the House?
We already voted that bill out of the Commerce Committee, and so it's pending floor consideration. And I certainly hope that it's something that we can vote on soon. And in fact, given the strong bipartisan support and reaching that 60 threshold, which you need to overcome a filibuster, I'm hoping that we might be able to even pass it by a process called unanimous consent, so that we can dispense with it in an expedited manner. But I'll be pressing for that, and hopefully we'll be able to actually get this across the finish line.
Now, I'm going to tell you this. So your former colleagues, Wisconsin Congressman Ron Kind, always said you needed 60 votes to breathe in the Senate. Is that a true rule?
Well, so what's interesting is the filibuster is used far more frequently than it used to be historically. But believe it or not, we do actually pass things by unanimous consent with some considerable frequency. And I'm still breathing on the floor okay without 60 votes.
Now, as part of the reason though with the filibuster, and again, I know we got to go, the reason it's used so much is it's not the old way. I remember back in the 90s, Senator Cole, Senator Feingold did not want the Northeast Dairy Compact renewed. So they filibustered. Senator
Mhm.
Cole would be on the floor reading from the Milwaukee Bucks press guide. Senator Feingold would give him a break if he needed it and be on the floor reading cheese recipes from Wisconsin. And they just kept going back and forth. And is that part of the problem? You could just, Senator Baldwin can just phone it in and say, I filibuster. There you go. Now we're stuck on everything.
So you're correct that these days, oftentimes a filibuster will take place without people actually standing on the floor and debating. But occasionally, that actually does happen. We had an instance not too long ago where folks actually had to take the floor and claim their time, and then as soon as they stopped, the vote took place. So that does occasionally happen.
Well, that is Senator Tammy Baldwin. You're listening to the WRDN Morning Farm Report.